All right. I think we're live. Push one in the chat if you can hear me. All right. Thank you for the confirmation, man. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 525, Space and Technology. Please hit the like button to come in, share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. Doc in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with. If you want to engage in the discussion, there'll be a link in the chat for you to click on. When you click on the link, make sure you raise your hand so that one of us can acknowledge you and advance you to the panel. Let me finish updating the docket, and then we'll be all set to go. All right, man, let's get started, man. Let me give a shout out to the people who first showed up. Mugen Black, peace to you. Black Scorpion, peace. Diesel Mike, peace. Complex Design, peace to you. All right, let me get started with the first item on the docket, man. We don't have a heck of a whole lot of time, so I'm trying to speed this up. All right, first item on the docket is from fastcompany.com. One day you might live in a 3D printed house. We talk about 3D printing a lot on here. Complex has been instrumental talking about that. Last year, in a remote part of southern Mexico, 50 families will move into the world's first 3D printed community. And on the outskirts of Austin, Texas, 6 people who were formerly homeless will move into small 3D printed homes this May. The 2 projects are the first large-scale proof that 3D printed technology could be a viable way of quickly build affordable housing. If we want to get our hands on the global housing crisis, not across hundreds of years, but in tens of years, we need a highly scalable solution, which 3D printing will be, says Jason Ballard, co-founder and CEO of Icon, the company that created the massive 3D printer that built the new homes. The company is the winner of the General Excellence category in Fast Company's 2020 World Changing Idea Awards. Let me expand this out because I can't see anything. The startup's printer at 33 feet long works like a giant version of desktop 3D printers, squirting out a custom concrete mixture of layers like frosting on cake. The process builds the walls of the house with other parts, including the roof and windows added later. The wall system is typically the most laborious, expensive, error-ridden, wasteful part of the construction process, Ballard says. The system combines the installation of multiple components, including installation, into one process. And the company's engineers are now experimenting with adding plumbing and electrical wiring into the 3D print. So this is the 3D printer here. The company partnered with News Story, a nonprofit focused on finding better ways to build affordable housing as it developed the technology. In Mexico, the team is building homes for some of the poorest residents in a rural area near the city of Nacajuca. The homes will be donated to families who are currently living in makeshift shacks that flood every time there's heavy rain, and that would be likely to collapse in an earthquake. While the shacks had single rooms with a patchwork of scraps over holes on walls and roofs, the new houses have 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a living room. For most families, it will be the first time they have access to indoor plumbing and electricity. That's pretty good. It's actually pretty good. The process made it faster to build a house. The wall can be printed in 24 hours, meaning that total construction time for the whole house may be cut in half. In areas where there's a shortage of construction workers, it can help fill that gap. The reduction in labor combined with affordable materials also make it less expensive to build. The materials are more rugged than standard construction in the area and better able to withstand disasters like hurricanes. Almost all other approaches to build and use inherently non-resilient material that you have to mitigate with treatments or coatings or extra costs, he says. But we are starting with a resilient material. So this is a picture of the bedroom in the 3D printed house. I'm not going to read the rest of this stuff, but you know, we had a conversation, I think Friday, and Complex was talking about utilizing some of these defunct malls for manufacturing. And maybe he may have a point that, you know, using a mall that's already defunct for 3D printing, or even an old Sears for that matter, old Sears and Roebuck store, and putting one of these printers inside there, or putting multiple printers inside there to start printing out these houses could be a way that you start to build these houses, or you can start using robotic manufacturing. So I think that's what complex is kind of coming from, but it does have its purpose. It does have its purpose. And if you want to solve the housing crisis, that's one way to do it. All right, next item on the docket is from TechCrunch.com. Here's how Blue Origin's human lander system will carry astronauts to the lunar surface. The Blue Origin bid was one of three that ended up winning a contract from NASA alongside SpaceX's Starship and a human landing system developed by Dynetics, working with a range of subcontractors. Blue Origin originally debuted its vision of a human lander last year, first with the unveiling of its Blue Moon craft in May, and then the announcement of its cross-industry national team at IAC later in the year. Now the company has released an animation of how long its landing system will work, including Blue Moon docking with a transfer element to bring astronauts over from the Orion capsule that will carry them to the moon from Earth, as well as the descent stage to actually land and the ascent stage to take off again from the disposable lander platform and return the astronauts to their ride home. Here's where each company is involved and what they are contributing to what you see above. Blue Origin is building the lander proper, which is that platform that with legs you see first in the video, and which is left behind on the moon at the end. Lockheed Martin is building the bubble-like vehicle that attaches to the lander and which takes off from it at the end. Northrop Grumman is building the long cylinder that connects up with the lander and provides its propulsion through low lunar orbit as it readies to land, and then disconnects before the actual descent. Draper is behind the sensors across all of this, delivering avionics for flight control and the landing itself. As mentioned, Blue Origin is one of the three companies selected by NASA to develop these lander systems, but its team brings to the table a lot of combined expertise in spacecraft, space flight and spacecraft development. The launch system itself will arrive separately from the astronauts on board Orion, making the trip either via a New Glenn rocket built by Blue Origin, which is still in development, or via the United Launch Alliance's Vulcan, another in development spacecraft set to take off for the first time next year. This is actually pretty good stuff. Here's the GIF of it right here. Let me expand it out. Yeah, that's pretty cool stuff, man. We talked about this many times before, that 1 in every 3 startups going forward will be a space startup. When SpaceX was developed, there was only about a dozen space startups. Now it is close to 100. So it only took about 15 years for the market to explode with them. So I think it's a viable market, and we should probably keep paying attention to it in the near future as well. So whether you're going to invest into it or you're going to be a part of it. All right, next item on the docket is from sciencealert.com, astronomers have found a star that survived being swallowed by a black hole. This is a GIF of it right here, of what they think happened. That's interesting. When black holes swallow down massive amounts of matter from the space around them, they are not exactly subtle about it. They belch out tremendous flares of X-rays generated by material heating to intense temperatures as it's sucked towards the black hole. So bright we can detect them from Earth. This is a normal black hole behavior. What is it? What the fuck is going on? What isn't normal is for those X-ray flares to spew forth with clockwork regularly, a puzzling behavior reported last year from a massive, supermassive black hole at the center of a galaxy 250 million light years away. Every 9 hours, boom, X-ray flare. After careful study, astronomer Andrew King of the University of Leicester in the UK believes he has identified the cause, a dead star that endured its brush with a black hole trapped on a 9-hour elliptical orbit around it. Every close pass or parastron, the black hole slurps up more of the star's material. The white dwarf is locked into an elliptical orbit elliptical orbit close to the black hole, orbiting every 9 hours. At its closest approach, about 15 times the radius of the black hole's event or horizon, gas is pulled off from the star into accretion disk around the black hole, releasing X-rays which the two spacecraft are detecting. The black hole is the nucleus of a galaxy called GSN 069, and it's pretty lightweight as far as a supermassive black hole goes, only 400,000 times the mass of the sun. Even so, it's active, surrounded by a hot disk of accretion material feeding into and growing the black hole. According to King's model, this black hole was just hanging out, doing its active accretion ring thing when a red giant star, the final evolutionary stages of a sun-like star, happened to wander a little too close. The black hole promptly divested the star of its outer layers, speeding its evolution into a white dwarf, the dead core that remains once the star has exhausted its nuclear fuel. So what we're seeing here is that the star is actually, although the star is in its final stages of life itself, it's actually being saved by the fact that it's getting stuck in a cyclical loop around the black hole itself. But I'd be interested in understanding what becomes of the star itself after it disintegrates around the black hole. I mean, do other things get trapped around that black hole as well in that discretion, or what? Like, we know what goes in, but what comes out of it is what I'm trying to figure out. Very interesting stuff, though. Just give me a second. Let me update my browser real quick. I think something's going on. All right, let's get started again. I'm going to fly through a lot of these because I don't have a whole lot of time to really spend on some of these other ones. I want to get to the heart of the matter here. All right, this is from space.com. A small asteroid the size of a bus will fly safely by Earth. This was over the weekend. A newly discovered asteroid about the size of a bus will zip safely by Earth today, passing at a distance just over halfway to the moon. The asteroid 2020 JA will fly by Earth at a range of about 148,000 miles when it passes today. That's about 0.62 times the distance between the Earth and the moon. The moon is about 239 miles away. The asteroid 2020 JA is between 31 and 72 feet wide, according to NASA's Center for Near-Earth Object Studies. NASA's asteroid watch widget listed the asteroid's diameter of about 40 feet and compared its size to a city bus. Astrophysicist Gianluca Masi of the Virtual Telescope Project in Secano, Italy, captured an image of 2020 JA with a telescope. In the image, the asteroid appears as a tiny point of light in a star field. Small asteroids like 2020 JA zip by Earth several times a month and typically pose no risk to our planet, NASA officials have said. For example, a tiny asteroid called 2020 HS7 passed Earth at a distance of 23,000 miles on April 28th, but posed no risk of impact. Scientists with NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office regularly track near-Earth objects like comets and asteroids to search for potential impact threats to our planet. To date, astronomers have found 22,776 near-Earth objects, more than 95% of them discovered through NASA's NASA-funded surveys, the agency has said. So I don't know about you all, but I'm not a big fan of not sharing that information with the general public that potentially, you know, a rock might be coming towards your house. I remember back in like the early 2000s, you know, there was a show, I can't remember the name of it right now, that discovered these kind of rocks falling from the sky. And it was falling through people's backyards and into their pools and in the back of their, the trunk of their cars and their driveways in the suburbs and whatnot. And no one really knew what it was, but it was rocks that were breaking up in space and then falling down. And you would think that NASA would be able to track a lot of that stuff. And can kind of give a good trajectory as to where this thing is going to fall. But none of these people knew where these rocks were coming from. And NASA wasn't sharing that information, you know? Whether it's NASA or any other space agency, the ESA, no one's sharing that information that these rocks were falling out of the sky into people's backyards and stuff, man. Very interesting things, though. All right, let me move to the next item on the docket. All right, this is from Newsweek.com. Radio signal coming from inside the Milky Way detected by astronomers. A radio signal coming from a source within the Milky Way has been detected by astronomers. The signal is a fast radio burst, FRB, bright radio bursts that last milliseconds and appear to come from deep space. Because they are short-lived, they were often only identified in satellite data after the signal was recorded. Finding where they came from and what produced them has been largely a mystery. The first FRBs were discovered over a decade ago. Since then, scientists have been trying to work out what is causing them. Suggestions have included cataclysmic events such as a collision of two neutron stars or a collapsing black hole. But these hypotheses were questioned when a repeating FRB was uncovered. A black hole can only collapse once, because then the FRB repeated. Scientists realized either there must be another explanation or more than one source can produce these bursts. Over recent years, an international group of scientists has come together to solve the mystery of FRBs. The collaboration has led to the discovery of more FRBs, with researchers using the findings to home in on their locations across the universe. For example, earlier this year, one team was able to trace an FRB to an old V-shaped star forming region in a huge spiral galaxy 500 million light years away. Until now, however, none appear to have come from our own galaxy. The latest discovery was announced in Astronomer's Telegram by Paul Schultz of the University of Toronto, Canada, on behalf of the SHINE, Canadian Hydrogen Intensity Mapping Experiment and FRB collaboration. In it, the team announced the detection of a bright radio burst coming from active magnetar known as SGR 1935 plus 2154. This is a type of neutron star, the collapsed core of a massive star that is thought to have an extremely powerful magnetic field. Interesting. The observation was made Tuesday. Discovery is preliminary, and researchers will need to analyze the burst to confirm their findings. However, if correct, they say this would be the first FRB ever detected coming from our own galaxy. Additional observations are strongly encouraged at all wavelengths, they wrote. The findings have been welcomed by other researchers studying FRB. Jason W.T. Hessels, senior scientist at Astron, Netherlands Institute for Radio Astronomy, told Newsweek the discovery was a breakthrough for the field. We now have direct evidence that a known galactic magnetar has produced a radio burst that is getting close to as bright as some known extragalactic FRB sources. He said in the email, is basically guaranteed that some FRB sources must be, by analogy, bursting magnetars, but a key question remains. Are they all bursting magnetars, or do FRB come from a variety of different origins? Pretty interesting stuff, you know. Who knows what's out there, right? They're only sharing with you just what they want you to know for right now. I mean, you would need, a collective effort. I think that we should be actually looking more into this in terms of more research, at least on our end, from like a civilian standpoint. I think there should be way more research into radio bursts and things like that. I think the moon should be heavily utilized for putting up more telescopes and things like that up there. We could be actually doing a lot more than just putting men up there. We should actually be putting more robots up there and more radio telescopes and so on and so forth. I think there's a lot that we can do. We're just not actually doing anything. All right, let me get to the next item on the docket. All right, this is from TechCrunch.com. Determined AI makes its machine learning infrastructure free and open source. Machine learning has quickly gone from niche field to crucial component of innumerable software stacks. But that doesn't mean it's easy. The tools needed to create and manage it are enterprise grade and often enterprise only, but Determined AI aims to make them more accessible than ever by open sourcing its entire AI infrastructure project or product. The company created its Determined training platform for developing AI in an organized, reliable way, the kind of thing that large companies have created and kept for themselves. The team explained when they raised an $11 million Series A last year. Machine learning is going to be a big part of how software is developed going forward. But in order for companies like Google and Amazon to be productive, they have to build all of this software infrastructure, said CEO Yvonne Sparks. One company we worked for had 70 people building their internal tools for AI. There just aren't that many companies on the planet that can withstand an effort like that. At smaller companies, ML, machine learning, is being experimented with by smaller teams using tools intended for academic work and individual research. To scale that up to dozens of engineers developing a real product, there aren't a lot of options. They are using things like TensorFlow or PyTorch. And Chief Scientist Amit Talwalkar, a lot of the way that work is done is just conventions. How do the models get trained? Where do I write down the data on which is best? How do I transform data to a good format? All these are bread and butter tasks. There's tech to do it, but it's really the wild, wild west. And the amount of work you have to do is to get it set up. There's a reason big tech companies build out these internal infrastructures. Determined AI, whose founders started out at UC Berkeley's AMP Lab, home of Apache Spark, has been developing this platform for a few years with feedback and validation from some paying customers. Now they say it's ready for its open source debut with an Apache 2.0 license, of course. We have confidence people can pick it up and use it on their own without a lot of hand holding. You can spin it up for you can spin up your own self-hosted installation of the platform using local or cloud hardware, but the easiest way to go about it is probably the cloud managed version that automatically provisions resources from AWS or whatever, or wherever you prefer, and tears them down when they are no longer needed. The hope is that the Determined AI platform becomes something of a base layer that lots of companies can agree on, providing portability to results and standards so you're not starting from scratch at every company or project. With machine learning development expected to expand by orders of magnitude in the coming years, even a small piece of the pie is worth claiming. But with luck, Determined AI may grow to be the new de facto standard for AI development in small and medium businesses. Yeah, this is something we talked about many times before with engineering cannabis, that AI, machine learning, deep learning, AI ops, ML ops, all of these things are starting to matter now, but there's not enough talent. There's not enough human resources available to add to your internal teams. And so what they're talking about doing with this is basically making it open source and allowing people to actually utilize the platform to help develop their AI teams. So I think you should actually go to Determined AI on Google and look it up and actually take advantage of the free and open source tools that would actually give you a leg up in terms of dealing with AI and ML. AI and ML is here to stay. It's going to be here for the next 20 years, so deal with it. All right, this next item on the docket, spin this up. We got Nagona 11 on the panel as well.
What's going on, fellas? What's going on?
All right. Next item on the docket is from InsideEVs.com. We need EV jumper cables before we are stranded. Here's a possible situation. So this image shows that a car with full battery power with a EV jumper cable connected to a weak car that does not have a strong battery is charging the secondary vehicle. So that's the objective. Explain this out. In recent months, we saw several products that might be useful to recharge a standard electric car with a depleted battery. From gas generators through portable battery chargers and mobile energy storage systems. However, there are products for professional use, and an average EV owner will not carry any of those daily. What we really need is an EV counterpart to jumper cables, a simple, easy to use, and low cost solution to connect two EVs, one with a depleted battery and the second one with a energy to spare. It would be a true vehicle to vehicle system without the need for anything beyond the cable, without a standard plug on both ends. Let's make some assumptions. EV jumper cables to transfer electricity from one vehicle to another. A single communication standard for the entire automotive industry, plug and play. The use of existing onboard power electronics for the purpose of receiving, supplying electricity without any additional devices. The use of existing charging inlets on both vehicles. Use a low cost, low power, low weight cables to be able to carry the EV jumper cable easily in the trunk. Yeah, I have my ideas about this. The thing in here is this. I think you need a wireless solution. And the reason why I say wireless is that if the cables ever get damaged for whatever reason, or they become faulty, it's of no use. And so in a situation like that, the other alternative is wireless charging. The idea of plugging or having two vehicles meet face to face or bumper to bumper to push low wattage of energy to each other, under a specific amount of power per transfer, is probably the way to go. You need a wireless function for that, something that's emergency based. Okay, similar to how you would take your smartphone and you would drop it onto a QI wireless charger, magnetic inductive charging. So I think that's the way. I think that's the way going forward. I don't know if a cable. I think a cable is basically a patchwork for something that's not long term. It's really short term. All right, let me get to the next item on the docket. All right, this is from Engadget.com. Stanford University lab repurposes scuba gear into reusable PPE. Bioengineering professor Manu Pragesh runs a lab at Stanford University that uses low-cost materials to create effective scientific devices. He returned from a recent vacation with some scuba gear as well as a cold. While he tested negative for COVID-19, he stayed cautious in self-quarantine for 2 weeks. During that time, he reworked his snorkel mask into a reusable face shield for healthcare providers by combining it with a medical grade filter. dubbed the new mask. Progress and his team tested the device and sent their findings to the FDA, which cleared it as a face shield or a surgical mask, but not as a respirator. According to the Washington Post, this decision was made so that the mask could go out to healthcare workers immediately, as clearing the device as a respirator would require more time. So let me play this video real quick.
Hi, I represent a team of engineers, doctors, designers, and businesses that have collaborated on a project to quickly distribute reusable PPE to healthcare workers that are on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic. The concept is to adapt a full face snorkel mask to interface with an existing supply of rated filters. And we've called this project New Mask. We're partnering with supply corporations and with networks of hospitals to hopefully roll out a product pending approval by the FDA. We've designed this adapter that interfaces with the snorkel piece of the mask. And then the filter attaches to this port here. And this is a standard size filter. So this filter, for example, is a completely different brand, and it also fits into the same port.
And to test if the seal is working properly, you can try inhaling while covering the top portion. This is the only place where air should be able to get into the mask. And when you cover that port, you should feel the air inside the mask suck up against your face due to the negative pressure. So it's very clear from the test to the user that that seal is working. So to take the mask off, you just press the clip on the back.
And you don't need to touch the front of the mask, which might be contaminated. So it's then important to disassemble this and to clean it according to the parameters in the documents that we have published online, specifically the autoclaving of the main mask, and then the decontamination procedures for the filter and the printed coupler. So now I'm going to talk about the second piece of our design, which is what happens when the hospital runs out of these respiratory filters. So we've designed a second modular component of this system, which looks like this, and it fits just right into the standard ISO port. And these industrial grade 3M filters fit right onto the system, and there are two of them on this port because they have higher resistance. But it's a standard port for both these P100s and also for these cartridge filters, the same standard port. So you can go from the medical filter supply to the industrial supply, and we have two different sources of the supply chain. We're working with Boston Scientific very closely and the University of Utah, along with suppliers. And so we're kind of doing this giant international collaboration, specifically to try to get this stuff to people. This is a stopgap solution for a problem of shortage of N95 masks. And as soon as those production lines come up, this won't be as necessary, but the point is that we need a solution tomorrow.
Absolutely. I think that we covered an article about Haiti.
Mike, I was just getting ready to bring that up, man. You talked about the Haiti with the snorkels, and I had a question. I was like, will these snorkels really work? And here these guys are talking about snorkels. The Haitians were dead on it. They were dead on it, man.
But they didn't have
the
filters to produce as many as they needed. They just had the snorkels, and somebody on the island, one of the doctors on the island said, wouldn't this be a good idea to actually do that? That's the way Haitians think. I mean, that's the way those people in those countries like that, and not just in the Caribbean or Haiti, but all over the world, that's how they think, man.
Yeah.
That's how they think. But you have somebody who's about to make a lot of money off of this in America, but this was already thought of a while back by the Haitians.
The Haitians. We had just talked about this last week, and I said snorkels. I didn't think about the snorkels And then I just wondered, if you had to snorkel on, and you possibly, could you get the proper filter in there to filter this thing right? Maybe this thing was working, and they were what the Haitians were already using it. I think they were using something like that.
Yeah, they took it from the I guess the store, because when tourists come down to Haiti, they go deep sea diving, but because you have a lack of tourists coming in, you had a whole lot of snorkels.
Yeah, and we were saying, how would people feel you walking up to them with a snorkel on or whatever? And we kind of laughed about that, but we were just talking about it, and here they are, here the mayonnaise up in here trying to sell these bad boys. Damn. Yeah. And moving with the filters, so put the filter in the snorkel to filter it out. And then if it gets more further contaminated, to get rid of that, and they put another filter in. It's exactly what it was. It was a snorkel. Yeah, the Haitians snorkeling. They had that idea already. They were already on it. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense though. They live on an island. They had a whole lot to work with.
Yeah, a lot of sense.
You don't need those N95 masks anymore. You really don't. I mean, you can read, because the thing is, like the video demonstrated that they can put that thing into a system that sanitizes it and repurposes it. You have plenty full masks around all those islands. Islands have plenty of masks. So for them, it's not that big of a deal, because I'm pretty sure they probably have 1,000 masks or something like that. For all your nurses and whatnot, this is genius.
Perfect solution. We had spoken about this just recently. We had spoken about this on the show, and here it is. Here they are. Mike, I don't know what day we pulled it up. Was it last? It was. I think it was last week. It was last Monday, right?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think it might have been last Monday, or it might have been the Tuesday. We covered the pandemic talk.
Yeah, it may have been Tuesday, but it was definitely within the last few, 5 or 6 or 7 days, and here it is. Yeah, we were talking about it. Yep. That's when I saw the snorkel. I was like, "What?" I was like, "We just talked about this with Haiti."
Yeah. Yeah.
They were on it. An ingenious type of an ingenious but very practical solution to that problem.
Yeah, because indigenous, it was you say it's ingenious, but it was also ingenious by the indigenous.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I mean, the people, the folks who were there, were ingenious with this. It was very practical. They had a very ingenious, practical solution to that problem there on the island. They had the answer. They had an answer right there.
We covered another article as well about people on the continent of Africa, coming up with their own innovative ideas.
Yes.
People have never left the country for all intents and purposes, and looking at things from around them. How come we don't have the same thing going on here in America? We got guys walking around with bandanas on their face looking like Yosemite Sam.
Bow legs at all, looking crazy.
Man.
Yeah, and that bandana will stop nothing. So it's ridiculous, but folks can get out here and cry and scream and call each other names and do all the other craziness we see, but they're not on top of looking for a solution. And here we are getting hit the hardest, one of the hardest hit ethnicities in this country, and we're up in here, on some dumb stuff.
Yeah, the thing is, I talked about this before about complex design and head-based filter, head-based mask. Yeah, so we talked about that last month. Another opportunity that can come out of these sort of discussions. So let me jump on to the next article from dzone.com. The impact of COVID-19 on the Internet of Things. COVID-19 is having an unprecedented impact on our society and our economy. There are also strong indications that many technologies will see accelerated adoption in the coming years because people become more digitally minded as they embrace technology while working from home. But how does COVID-19 impact the Internet of Things, its technology and its applications specifically? In the last weeks, we did our research and talked to various IoT decision makers to understand what the COVID-19 IoT impact in their organizations is and where they see things going from here. The results of 25 different COVID-19 IoT effects published as part of a 2-part blog series. This is the part 1 of part 2. IoT Analytics also today published a new 105-page State of the IoT Q1 2020 report. The COVID-19 IoT impact presented in the blog post is discussed in even greater detail in that report, together with the IoT Analytics view on 70 overreaching or overarching current trends in the fields of IoT software, connectivity, hardware, and security, as well as an update on the number of globally connected IoT devices and a drill down into regions, verticals, and technology segments. To understand the COVID-19 IoT impact on specific applications, one first needs to understand the enterprise needs that drive some of the applications. Number one is cost, capital expenditures. That's to be expected. Number two is better business transparency is needed. The quickly changing dynamics of the COVID-19 pandemic and the inability to visit some physical sites have led to the realization that transparency about employee whereabouts and well-being about goods in transit and manufacturing has become crucial. Firms that operate in the business of data visualization are seeing a spike in tool usage. Widely popular Tableau, for example, saw its app climb 600 spots in the iOS business category in 1 week. 3 processes become more automated. It can be expected that in the coming months, businesses will need to automate their processes more. Okay, let me read that again. It can be expected that in the coming months, businesses will need to automate their processes more. So some people were saying, oh, automation is not going to come in, you know, once they lift the travel bans and the the shutdown, everything will just go back to normal. Not exactly. Not according to some of these companies. Says firms that operate in the business of data visualization. No, sorry. It can be expected in the coming months, businesses will need to automate their processes more. Before the crisis, automation was in many cases seen as the enemy of our jobs, as robots, autonomous vehicles, and other technologies were threatening to replace them. Now the question has become, how can automation accelerate our recovery and protect us from future pandemics? These are the conversations that they're having. Some people will say, oh, the Black Brain Trust is about doom and gloom. Not exactly. Not exactly. It says it can be expected in the coming months, businesses will need to automate their processes more. Before the crisis, automation was in many cases seen as the enemy of our jobs, as robots, autonomous vehicles, and other technologies were threatening to replace them. Now the question has become, how can automation accelerate our recovery and protect us from future pandemics? Robots working alongside humans in hospitals to perform cleaning in automated warehouses have shown how humans can be protected through automation. Many automation experts foresee the topic to take off. So this is the impact. Number 4, supply chains and manufacturing capacity become flexible, resilient. Due to the severe impact of the crisis on supply chains, it can be expected that COVID-19 IoT impact will be that companies will need to change their supply chain strategies, most notably multiple suppliers, supply locations. Number 2, capital expenditures, operational expenditures will be a theme, okay? The impact of COVID-19 on IoT applications, decreased interest in consumer IoT devices. Although consumers are spending considerable time at home, it appears as though they do not go out and buy personal IoT devices at a large scale. App downloads from major IoT devices are a key indicator of sales volume. The ranks of these apps are down considerably. Number two, remote asset access becomes important. Conference tools like Zoom are booming because they connect people remotely. Similarly, remote asset access tools are also booming because they connect the people with their machines and assets. They enable people to remotely communicate with machines and perform virtual inspections and remote diagnostics as well as remote support. Keith Blodern, business director at ProSoft Technology, confirmed this trend in a recent interview with IoT Analytics. We are seeing many new users for our ProSoft Connect remote access solution as companies are in need to access their PLCs from afar. Number three, digital twins help with scenario planning. Many companies are currently affected by production, shipping, and distribution delays, as well as demand variability due to COVID-19 in response. Digital twins are being used to create digital representations of the end-to-end supply chain that enables customers to explore dynamic sourcing options, assess risk, and evaluate trade-offs to speed or automate decisions. Number four, new uses for drones. Drones have been of help during the crisis. Number one, for medical deliveries, Zhao Liang, COO at Antwork, said, during the past month, our drone delivery system in Xinjiang County has helped local hospitals with more than 300 flights delivering medical samples and medicines related to the COVID-19 virus. Number two, for surveillance and monitoring. Number three, for broadcasting messages and spread information. And number four, for spraying. Agricultural drones manufacturer Zag Co. Limited and Huawei converted 2,600 smart robots and drones into disinfectant sprayers. Amazing. Number five, specific IoT health application surge. Healthcare is obviously at the center of the COVID-19 pandemic. Early data suggests that digital health solutions that relate to COVID-19 are surging. This includes telehealth consultations, digital diagnostics, remote monitoring, remote robot assistance. Particularly in China, robots have been used to disinfect and clean hospitals and perform medicine delivery. Number six, track and trace solutions get used more extensively. As supply chains get disrupted and demand patterns change, real-time supply chain visibility is proven to be extremely important. David Husson, Global IoT Network Manager at VesselTracker.com, confirmed this in an interview. A significant portion of our customers are reporting that ability to track vessels is proven to be extremely helpful. Local lockdowns have caused major disruptions, so some partners are relying on Vessel Tracker to figure out if a vessel is actually coming to their port or if there has been a significant change to its ETA. Providers of IoT technology are making use of their data and updating the public on what's going on in their IoT networks. Number seven, the smart city data platforms become key. Among the many smart city initiatives, it turns out that the ability to have an overarching data platform and make use of that during the crisis is one of the most important tools that a city can have. Korea, the country that perhaps has best handled the pandemic, used its smart city data hub to allow epidemiological investigators to request, obtain, and confirm data about coronavirus cases and people they had come in contact with. Other cities such as Boston built up new platforms as the pandemic spread. Yes, we did. We're actually doing very good here. Number eight, increase in easy to install IoT retrofit solutions. Companies and end users that are not digitally connected may find it beneficial to use a retrofit solution that is easy to install, but doesn't necessarily provide all the same benefits of a completely engineered IoT solution. Bosch's smart meter retrofit is a good example that enables utilities to continue meter reading of legacy meters without much effort. Rocky Emler, owner, connected energy at Bosch.io explains. During the crisis, we are seeing increased inquiries for our IoT meter add-on device. We send the client a small device that they attach to their meter. The data then gets sent in a secure fashion through Bosch's IoT suite to the utility company so that they do not need to dispatch a person to perform on-site meter reading. This is where we are right now. So IoT is playing a significant role. So the days of desktop support and help desk and stuff, you're gonna have to get familiar with Internet of Things, IoT, because this is the new way of doing things. It's a connected device. This is the crux of fourth industrialization, connected devices, cyber connected systems. This is it, IoT.
But Mike, things have been kind of trending this way for a while, though. So
Say that again.
I said things have been trending that way for a while.
Well, yeah, because we're in the fourth industrial age.
Yep.
All right, this is from TechRadar.com. 5G wireless networks leading fourth industrial revolution. Network providers around the globe are launching 5G networks that can connect the handful of available 5G capable devices. Currently, very few devices are connected to these new networks, allowing providers to tote headline grabbing download speeds of 1 gigabit per second plus. That is up to 10 times faster than the super fast broadband services households in the UK enjoy when they are with a major provider, which is around 50 to 100 megabits to be to the home, which has to be shared with all the occupants, such as data-hungry young family or even a group of students. Although higher data speeds will enable new use cases, including replacing existing wired broadband services, my premise is that data throughput speed is not where the true value of 5G lies. Two critical benefits introduced by 5G: the reduction of network-based delays. Through improvements in data transmission technologies, 5G will reduce device to cell tower delay to less than 1 millisecond. Coupled with the integration of edge computing, this will allow for truly real-time applications, irrespective of where you are. This is essential for automation that supports quicker than human reaction times. 5G has the concept of network slicing built into its core. This technology will guarantee slices of network capacity to a nominated applications, which will guarantee that any data deemed safety critical as a minimum will be delivered in return as per the contractual agreement with the service provider. With these benefits, 5G will act as the foundation enabling platform for a number of technology revolutions over the next decade and beyond. Level 4 and 5 autonomous vehicles. Driverless vehicles are rated based on their level of autonomous capability. Level 4 is total autonomy, no driver required, within a small and controlled geographic area. Level 5 autonomy allows the vehicle to self-drive anywhere you want to go. These levels will allow you to take a backseat for a nap or to finish up the PowerPoint presentation while your car chauffeurs you to work. To reach these levels of autonomy, vehicles will need to go beyond simply scanning the environments with their infrared scanners and cameras, as modern cars already do. They need to interact with it and the sensors and the vehicles within it in real time to ensure maximum level of safety for the vehicle's occupants. This will be crucial in a hybrid world of driven and self-driven vehicles. So they're talking about 5G, the necessity for 5G in all these areas. Many of, I'm not going to read the rest of these. Let me read this last one. Rich and smooth virtual and augmented reality, VR and AR from any location. It's no coincidence that companies such as HTC in Korea have essentially bet their entire futures on virtual reality, or that Google has just launched a new version of the augmented reality tool chain in tandem with global deployments of 5G. Similar to online gaming, real-time access to cloud computing resources over 5G will exponentially uplift how immersive and rich these applications are able to be, while improving the user experience by eradicating the delays currently caused by latency and slow data transmission speeds. Again, VR and AR vendors are likely to work in conjunction with 5G providers to drive early adoption. In conclusion, the potential that 5G offers as an enabler of the next phase of technology revolution is exciting. The fourth industrial revolution will see both AI and advanced automation embedded into many industries that have so far been very human effort oriented. As a leading technologist working for a company at the forefront of the next generation connectivity, cloud services, cybersecurity, and AI data analytics, I can see that the pace of change and technology evolution will accelerate as 5G is deployed globally, meaning that my working life will remain interesting if nothing else. So there you have it. Okay. Autonomous vehicles, VR and AR, virtual reality, augmented reality. Richard Victor Dixon, Hard Fork Rich in the chat, has been talking about VR and AR almost every single week, week in, week out, and the applications that surround it. And then you combine that with IoT, with 5G, and then you add blockchain to a lot of that stuff to secure people's identities. I mean, we've been talking about this for over a year now. We have been talking about this for over a year now. So all right, this is from WeTracker.com. E-commerce in Africa, analysis of the startup investment landscape. Let me expand this out. With the rise of the internet, the millennial consumer, mobile money penetration, and a reported increase in Africa's middle class disposable income, the African e-commerce industry finds itself flourished with the ability to not only jumpstart small businesses, but also help large companies enter a market full of energized customers. Statistics portal Statistica reports that the value of the African e-commerce industry reached $16.5 billion US in 2017, and forecast that industry revenues will reach $46 billion US by 2024, okay? $46 billion market over there on the continent. At a compound annual growth rate, CAGR, of 14.2% between 2020 and 2024, okay? So you're talking about 3.5 to 4% year over year between now and 2024. It also seems that growth in the sector is driven by the X, millennial, and Y generations, who form 79% of African e-trade consumers. So almost 80% of the continent's e-commerce consumers are of people our age and below. Despite numerous positive predictions for the sector, almost 10 years since the launch of the first such platform, e-commerce is yet to attain its full potential with limited to non-existent growth in markets such as Congo, Burundi, and Chad. More importantly, industry players report critical roadblocks in logistics and the last mile delivery, which have derailed the sector's development. With both bullish and bearish positions bearing observed in the market, We Tracker Research sought to analyze Africa's e-commerce investment landscape between 2018 and 2020. A total of 60 transactions were identified, with 40 of those accounting for $161 million US of disclosed funding. Out of 54 startups that received funding in this period, 65% are online marketplaces for products such as electronics, hygiene, baby products, food and groceries, and home furniture and automobile accessories. On the other hand, 35% of on-demand service providers offering home care professional services such as cleaning and repairing. As earlier stated, in the period under review, the e-commerce space saw a total of 60 investment deals, with 40 of the deals accounting to $161 million US. However, 87% of the total disclosed amount was raised by only 3 companies in Africa's most developed e-commerce markets. These include Kenya's Copia, South Africa's We Buy Cars, and Nigeria's Gigi. The year 2019 saw a higher deal number at 27 compared to 11 in 2018. There were also significantly larger capital allocations in the year versus the previous year. While USD 98 million was raised in 2018, only 4 million US was available to the rest of the ecosystem after Nasper's own OLX invested 94 million in We Buy Cars in Q3. A total sum of 60.5 million was raised in 2019, with at least 2/3 of funding having been raised in Q4. In 2018, industry investments were dominated by angel investors, incubators, accelerators, and VC firms. Early stage investors continue to form the large proportion of investors in the sector. Egypt recorded the highest number of incubator participation during the review period, with Flat 6 Labs and MISC 500 Accelerator being the major players. The year 2019 saw increased interest from private equity firms who invested USD $50 million in Q4, although to a large extent through partnerships. New investors include Nuru Capital, Lateral Capital, and Goodwill Investments, who have also invested in e-commerce support industries. While the e-commerce sector raised 94% of the total investments under the review period, 2019 was a year that witnessed a change in the investment trends. There is a growing interest in on-demand service startups. In 2019, this segment raised a total of $8 million in an undisclosed amount of 2020 Q1. Summary: economies in the African region exhibit varying life cycles for the e-commerce sector and interest by investors. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development global ranking for e-trade readiness reveals the nascent stage of the industry. A separate report reveals that 20 out of the 54 African countries, have rules for online consumer protection, which could deter investor interest. Many countries across Africa have challenges adapting to e-commerce. Key barriers to the industry's growth include trust issues, the lack of formal postal address systems, poor logistics infrastructure, and the low rate of credit debit card users. Startups in the sector say that while there has been some funding, there need to be more exits to give confidence to investors. There are currently more investments in digital payments, logistics, and supply chain whose growth is expected to spur e-commerce and therefore catalyze investments into the space. Yeah, this was bound to happen. The thing about the content is that a lot of people speak English, and the big developers all speak English, okay? Or the big startups, I should say, all speak English, at least for the most part. And so what's happening here is your money stretches further as an investor because you invest 60 million US is enough to go the next 10 years. You don't really need to spend any more money. People are not going to run out of that. Your labor cost is going to be significantly lower, okay? There's people over there that can live off $1,000 US in a year. In the United States, you can't even live off $1,000 a week. There you go. It's a big difference. Big difference, man. So I've been talking about this for a minute. I don't know how much more I can talk about it. I think there's a lot more opportunity than what people are giving credit to. So,
and as you hit it in the head, the overhead is low, so your dollar's going to go a lot farther, and that goes for Africa and a lot of other countries, but Africa in particular, throughout the continent, your money is going to go a lot farther. It all depends on, it also depends on where you are. Cause I know, when I was in Angola, it was pretty expensive over there for like apartments and stuff. If you wanted to live in, right in the city and kind of live the high life, it was actually very expensive. But, when you went to the more outlying areas, outside, it was definitely a lot cheaper. And that's just kind of how it is, I think, in Africa overall. Now, Mike, you were in Rwanda. So in Kigali, I don't know, did it seem expensive if you were like living near the consulate and so forth? No,
it was, so one of the places I was at, an apartment would cost you $50 a month. Okay, $50 US a month.
$50 a month. A month. Now you can bring a whole horde of people down there, Americans and so forth, and house them up and work and really, build a company along with working with the, with the people there in the country. $60 million. That's going to last you forever.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. From a startup perspective, your labor costs are very, very low. Your overhead is very low. Your savings are high.
Your savings are high.
Yeah, your savings are high. And the most you're going to spend is on infrastructure. So building out, desk space and office space and stuff like that, buying laptops and connectivity, right? Fiber or Wi-Fi or whatever it is that you're trying to install, 4G, 5G. That's where your overhead is gonna start to creep in. So, your CapEx, your capital expenditure and operational expenditures are going to come in there, right? But that's always the case in any sort of rollout. You're going to spend a lot more upfront for the infrastructure, and then over the time, it's going to pay for itself.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the bottom line, and that's why we talk about a lot of stuff here on the Brain Trust, but people have to look at where you can kind of make great opportunities for yourself as well, and for those who are inclined to look at something overseas and raise money and build a business outside of this country. It's a lot cheaper. I'm even looking at Brazil, where you got almost almost 6 to 1 dollar ratio. So your money is going to go very far over there, and many other countries, some even Europe included, but Africa in particular, your money is going to go very far, and that is something that I don't know if we can pass up some of these opportunities. I think a lot of the opportunities for many of us here to make a lot of money and do very well actually is going to be over there, and I hope we start to think more along those lines.
Yeah, because now that's what I'm saying. You can actually shift your operations over. If you're an ADOS or whatever you want to call yourself, you can shift right over there and you can live like a king. And you can be rolling out your own sort of platform, your own sort of startup, get in the investment. The investment's there. It's $90 million there, $60 million there, another $30 million there. Investment is flying all over the place over there for startups. E-commerce is big, but like the article stated, the lack of formal postal system is actually hampering it. I propose people, instead of using the address and streets and all of that stuff, forget all of that. We'll traverse all of that. We'll just use GPS location data, longitude and latitude. Well, who needs to have an address on there's no Martin Luther King Boulevard on the continent. We don't need all that. You live on this dirt road, just give me the GPS coordinates by your phone, and that drone is going to drop it off to you. We don't need all that address stuff. You need an address system for legacy postal systems back in the United States, but now you don't need that anymore. You can ride down the street to somebody. I know people I know people who have never left their own cities, man. People who live in Brooklyn never been outside of Brooklyn.
I know people in Harlem who have never been seriously downtown. Never gone downtown. Never really gone downtown. Stayed in Harlem, stayed uptown, and never really gone downtown. Brooklyn and going out to Queens and some of this, my train and hanging out there is almost going to a foreign country. I mean, it's kind of crazy like that. I mean, that may sound insane as to what I'm saying, but this is very true. A lot of kids and stuff haven't done it. So
on your major main streets, I can understand the need for an address system, but on side streets, the way the continent is developed, it was developed from a colonialist standpoint, so it wasn't set up to benefit the people. So the need for a proper address system and postal system was never a priority for the colonizer. It was never a priority for them. So that's why it lacks it. But with the technology that we have now, a person can pull out their smartphone and pull up their GPS coordination. And it's almost 99% accurate. So why would you need, a street address or anything like that? Just give me the GPS location and my drone will get them packages to you, or my vehicle, my navigation system would direct me over there. But that's another opportunity for people from the West to come over there and actually design out a system leveraging the technology. Push those GPS coordinates to WhatsApp. WhatsApp will then feed it to me through an AI chatbot, and we'll map all this stuff out. There's a lot of opportunity that come out of this, man. But I don't have enough time. We don't have enough time on this live stream to actually go through all of it. So it's all up to people, man, and what they want out of this. So. All right, let me get to this next item on the docket. Is from fastcompany.com. This pay-as-you-go solar fridge helps poor African families save money in food. The electric grid is growing in sub-Saharan Africa, but more than 500 million people still don't have access to electricity. No electricity makes life more difficult in any number of ways, but one is the lack of a refrigerator, which means people cannot store perishable food or medicines. To combat this problem for people waiting for electric grids to expand, a new brand called Yuma offers a small fridge that's efficient enough to run on a single solar panel, and a pay-as-you-go system makes it affordable even for families living on the most limited budgets. The company, the winner of the Europe, the Middle East, and Africa region category in Fast Company's 2020 World's Changing Ideas Awards, started selling its first solar fridges in Kenya and Uganda in 2019. Having access to a refrigerator has ripple effects, says Andre Morrison, product head at Yuma, a brand of Brazil-based Nidec global appliance. Brazil, interesting. There are obvious benefits. Food lasts longer and less is wasted, and medication that needs refrigeration, such as insulin, can be safely stored. But a fridge also starts bringing some gender equality, he says. Women who typically still handle food shopping and preparation may spend hours walking back and forth to markets and additional hours cooking. With the refrigerator, it's suddenly possible to buy more food at once and save leftovers, giving them more free time, Morrison says. That's a picture of the fridge with the solar panel. That also saves money. One tomato in Nairobi village is the same price as 3 tomatoes, he says. The difference is very small. So then you can buy in bulk. When the first fridges rolled out in a pilot program, the company found that customers were saving an average of $4.83 a week by reducing food spoilage and saving time on trips to the market in an area where the average daily income is around $2 a person or $10 for a household. Some families reported saving as much as 50% of their household income. That's really good. Some convenience stores in small markets are also beginning to use the technology, which makes it possible to expand what they can sell. A cold drink, Morrison says, can earn a shop owner twice as much per bottle. Yuma partnered with M-Kopa, a Kenyan solar energy company, to offer the fridges as part of the solar home system that also includes 2 LED light bulbs, 2 strip lights, and 2 phone charging cables. After customers sign up, a solar panel is installed on their roof and begins charging the solar fridge's battery. The battery manages power consumption and can keep the fridge running for a day and a half without sunlight. The refrigerator itself, with a unique compressor, uses little energy. We redesigned the cooling system to make it efficient as possible, says Morrison. Customers pay a small amount via their mobile phones each day. Each credit keeps the fridge running until the system is fully paid off. And that's where cryptocurrencies, tokenization starts to come in. Now you see the need for digital wallets. Now you see the need for smartphones. Now you see the need for smart TVs and different sort of community wireless systems. You see all this. You see the need for all this.
For sure.
Yeah. All that food spoilage and stuff like that, you can actually put that food spoilage inside of a container and then make it become biodegradable to create more fuel. A lot of people, man, there's a lot of opportunities, man. I shouldn't even be on here, man. We do too much and get very little in return around these parts.
Yeah, the more you look at it, you can see that, for many of us, the opportunities are there, man. The opportunities are there. That, in a lot of ways, they're trying to close you out here in the United States. And this some bitch is a burning ship, I think, in some ways. I mean, it's not going down anytime soon, but I think the best opportunities are out for many of us are going to be outside of here to really, and I'm not talking about just to have a decent living, but to really hit it big. Because you got a lot of obstacles here, and it's just you got a lot of whack shit going on over here that I think are impedance to business. I think if we start to make more money there, then it would further open up things here.
Mm-hmm.
And we like I said, that's something. Well, we're certainly going to be looking at that, but I hope many other Black folks who look at this type of content, will certainly take looking at Africa and some of the faster growing economies there as as true legitimate options.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we got Jay on the panel. What's going on, Jay?
Oh, what's going on, guys?
AJ, what's going on?
I disagree with you slightly on your last point about the addresses.
About what?
About the addresses, because just because you have GPS coordinates doesn't mean you know where access to the road begins. That's gotten me in trouble in many countries trying to navigate using GPS. Or you end up in neighborhoods you're not supposed to be in, or you end up on abandoned plantations. That's happened to me before, by the way.
Well, from a navigation standpoint, that might be the case, but from a drone standpoint, the drone doesn't care. The drone is going to drop wherever the GPS location says it is. You understand what I'm saying? That's what I was referring to, is that the drone doesn't care about streets and street signs and all that stuff. In all actuality, you give it GPS coordinates and it's going to go to those GPS locations. And as a matter of fact, if the phone that the person has on the receiving end is active, it's going to pinpoint that location down to 10 feet, because GPS is off by at least 1 to 5%. So as long as there's an active GPS signal beaconing that they can communicate to, it's going to find where you are, regardless. That's how accurate the technology is. And actually on the continent, they don't actually use GPS. They actually use GLONASS, which is the Russian equivalent of GPS, because the way the continent is structured, I think it's latitudinal as opposed to longitudinal, which is what GPS is designed for. And so GLONASS is embedded on every phone anyways, but the point that I'm making here is that the geospatial location tracking is actually pretty accurate. I think GLONASS is even more accurate than GPS is, down to like 3 feet.
Yeah, it's very accurate. In fact, when I was in Madagascar in 2016, I didn't even have data on my phone. I just saved the map. Mm-hmm. And it was able to pinpoint where I was. I was able to navigate in Madagascar. It's extremely underdeveloped. But before we get to the drone thing, though, like just ground transportation, like that's a big issue, because like when I was in Rwanda, for example, mm-hmm. like I gave the driver the address of the hotel. Like it still took him like an hour to find the place, because the address system is just not standardized. It's like really hard to find stuff. Every time I've been to Africa, except South Africa, it's always a pain to find where you're going.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That is very true. That is very true. I had a hard time finding the Western Union when I was over there, because the GPS, not the GPS, the navigation didn't really understand where I was going. I mean, it gave me a rough idea, and I was able to find it on foot. But to your point, I agree with you. But I think there's a lot of opportunity that comes from, geospatial development over there. There's a lot of things that can come out of that.
Yep, I agree. I think like Ghana, I think it was a couple of years ago, they launched their first satellite. It was a CubeSat. And that was back in 2013, but they've launched a couple of satellites since then too. Oh wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, and I think one of the goals was like surface mapping mm-hmm. of their country. So yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, you have some of the fastest growing middle classes on the planet right now in Africa. Mm-hmm. It's a young country, young country, excuse me. It's a young continent with respect to many of the peoples in the various countries. And I think if I'm not mistaken, I think the average age for most countries in Africa are somewhere around 24, 25 yeers of age. I mean,
about 30 now.
It's about 30 now. Yeah. Okay. So the countries, most of the countries there on the continent, are fairly young. So you still have a lot of young people. There's a lot of opportunity for people to get well educated and have an active workforce. So that place is prime. It's actually prime for investment, and it's prime for entrepreneurs to go there and do well. I think it's a prime environment for that. It's prime. Yeah. It's a prime environment.
Yeah. Let me get to this next item on the docket from TechCrunch.com. NVIDIA's top scientist develops open source ventilator that can be built with $400 in readily available parts. NVIDIA chief scientist Bill Daly has released an open source ventilator hardware design he developed in order to address the shortage resulting from the global coronavirus pandemic. The mechanical ventilator design developed by Daly can be assembled quickly using off-the-shelf parts with a total cost of around $400, making it accessible and affordable alternative to traditional dedicated ventilators which can cost $20,000 or more. The design created by Daly strives for simplicity and basically includes just two central components, a solenoid valve and a microcontroller. The design is called OpVent, and in the video below, you can see how bare bones it is in the terms of hardware compared to existing alternatives, including some of the other more complex emergency use ventilator designs developed in response to COVID-19. So this is just a quick video on it. I won't spend too much time on it. All right, let me start that. Daly's design, which was developed with using input from mechanical engineers and doctors, including Dr. Andrew Moore, a chief resident at Stanford University, and Dr. Bryant Lin, a medical devices expert and company co-founder, can be assembled in as little as 5 minutes and is small enough to fit in a Pelican case for easy transportation and portability. It also employs fewer parts and uses less energy than similarly simple designs that adapt the manual breather bags used by paramedics in emergency response. Next up for the design is getting it cleared by the FDA under the agency's emergency use authorization program for COVID-19 equipment, and then seeking manufacturing partners to pursue large-scale manufacturing. That's actually pretty dope stuff, man. I can't front. There's a lot of industrialization coming out of all of this. Coming out of COVID industrialization, pandemic industrialization. We got complex design on the panel as well.
Complex.
I think he's driving.
Yo, man, I'm just clocking out and everything. I gotta go run a quick errand. I'm gonna be listening in. So if it's a little loud in the background, just pardon the noise, but I'm listening in.
All right, man. All right, this is from Brookings.edu. Using fourth industrial revolution to fight COVID-19 around the world. Brookings is a credible institution, so. From artificial intelligence for medical diagnostics to mobile technology for data collection and contact tracing technologies associated with the fourth industrial revolution offer efficient and effective ways to cope with the speed, scope, and impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. But these technologies are far from evenly distributed around the world, and this leaves lagging countries and their vulnerable populations at a considerable disadvantage in their capacity to decrease the risk and slow transmission of the disease. These technologies are already showing promise in helping contain and cope in the pandemic. AI and mobile technology offer data collection tools to aid in contact tracing, symptom checking, and predicting outbreaks and vulnerabilities. Partners Healthcare, for example, created an AI-based COVID-19 screener to identify patients suffering severe symptoms of the disease. And for those of you who don't know, Partners Healthcare is the largest healthcare system in Massachusetts, and probably in New England as a whole. They are like a 800-pound gorilla when it comes to healthcare. Canadian AI model Blue Dot provided an early warning on December 31st, 2019, that the novel coronavirus would spread globally. AI-based computer vision cameras are being used to assess whether social distancing is being respected in public areas, and AI-based thermal imaging cameras have been used worryingly to scan public spaces and identify potentially sick people in China. Apple and Google have partnered to adapt mobile Bluetooth technology to contact tracing. Cloud-based platforms make it easier for workers and students to practice social distancing, and as do drones and robots by delivering medical supplies to health facilities and medicine and meals to infected patients. Mobile money allows vendors to go cashless. Advanced materials and nanotechnologies are also playing a critical role in rapid diagnostics, therapeutics, surveillance, and monitoring, vaccines, and developing new forms of personal protective equipment. Nanotech Surface, an Italian company, has developed a nanomaterial-based sanitizer that continues to kill bacteria for months after being applied to a surface. And the Czech Respiron group is designing nanofiber respiratory masks capable of killing a virus rather than just trapping it, protecting the wearer as well as his or her surroundings. 3D printing enthusiasts are stepping in to make crucially needed medical supplies. But not all countries have the same ability to harness the technologies to fight COVID-19. Countries around the globe vary in capacity, which refers to physical and digital infrastructure and human capital for utilizing these technologies. They also vary in how widely and effectively these technologies are deployed, which we refer to as the usage effectiveness of fourth industrial revolution technologies. We can distinguish 4 categories of countries. Countries with high levels of both capacity and usage effectiveness, those with high capacity but low usage effectiveness, those with low capacity and high usage effectiveness, and those with both low capacity and low usage effectiveness. This framework can help policymakers, innovators, and technologists consider what technological interventions might be most effective in combating COVID-19 based on a country's existing resources and readiness levels. High capacity, high usage effectiveness. Countries with both high capacity and usage effectiveness have harnessed fourth industrial revolutionary technology to more effectively combat the outbreak. Germany has managed to keep its COVID-19 death rate much lower than other European countries and is using location data from smartphones to do aggressive contact tracing. A South Korean company utilized its existing AI technology to design testing kits in days rather than weeks, allowing it to scale up production before the crisis hit. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention uses a mobile app for symptom reporting as well as AI-enabled chatbots and phone calls to disseminate information and identify nearby testing locations. South Korea's success in using these technologies stemmed in part from its regulatory environment. The Ministry of Health has the authority to collect data from telecom companies, credit card transactions, GPS systems, and other sources. And officials are automatically alerted if someone crosses the boundaries of their mandatory quarantine. High capacity, low usage. In countries with high capacity but low usage effectiveness, healthcare systems are struggling to integrate the technology that could be used to improve their response. In the United States, health authorities have failed to step up production of necessary medical supplies, and the public health response has been generally haphazard and uncoordinated. Unlike in other technologically advanced countries, the government failed to carry out effective digital contact tracing operations. Spain has also been criticized for failing to act early on. Their 3D printing community stepped forward after learning of severe shortages of medical protective equipment, exposing a missed opportunity the government had to mobilize a highly efficient network and stockpiling supplies before the crisis escalated. Low capacity and high usage. In countries with low capacity but high usage, such as many developing countries in Africa, where mobile phone solutions are becoming increasingly popular, technology can be used in aid to promoting social distancing. Increased access and fee reductions in Senegal, Kenya, and Uganda, Tanzania, Ghana, and Nigeria are enabling more people to use mobile money in lieu of cash transactions. Ugandan produced vendors, for example, have moved operations to an app called Market Garden, reducing physical human interaction to the motorcycle delivery driver. Nigeria's health ministry is using WhatsApp push notifications to disseminate accurate information about symptoms, prevention, and treatment. While telehealth is far from a complete solution, it can reduce unnecessary or arduous trips to health facilities. A public-private partnership in South Africa, for example, has made the mobile health platform Hello Doctor free to all during the lockdown. Low capacity, low usage. Lastly, countries with both low capacity and low usage will be the most vulnerable in the event of a major outbreak of COVID-19. This includes the Central African Republic and Chad, where governments with low capacity will have to think about how to best deploy limited resources toward technological innovation in their pandemic response. Some technologies do not require high capacity for effective use, but require instead effective governments to enable them. It is not out of the question, for example, that poor countries with low levels of technological adoption might use drones to deliver medical supplies in the event of a severe outbreak. In conclusion, technological capacity and usage do not exist in a vacuum. Regulatory environments, privacy concerns, and leadership all impact how fourth industrial revolution technologies are deployed to meet this global challenge. These technologies are making it possible for many to continue working during lockdowns and are improving the medical response. But the gap between the haves and the have-nots remains massive, both within and between countries. Leveraging the fourth industrial revolution to fight COVID-19 so that no country and no one is left behind will require a combination of investment, innovation, preparedness, and effective use and leadership within countries, but also global cooperation and solidarity among nations to ensure broader access, usage, quality, and effectiveness of the disruptive technologies for a healthier and more prosperous world. The world needs it and humanity can afford it. I think this is a pretty good article, kind of summarizing a lot of stuff that we've covered over time. I would have liked to get involved in that, but the problem in the United States is that you're kind of locked out from these discussions. Although they call it a democracy, it's only a democracy in name itself and not really in practice. And so Black people usually are not invited to this level of conversation. That's why you don't really see too many Black people in America really contributing to the intervention of the pandemic. You have a few doctors here and there, but as a collective effort, there's no conversation happening between the federal, state, and local governments and Black people as a whole. And that's what keeps them isolated from ever contributing or even being a part of the discussion at all. All right. All right, let me go to the last item on the docket. All right, this is from Forbes.com, the top 10 technology trends of the fourth industrial revolution. We have never lived in a world of faster and more wide-reaching technology innovations. Our jobs, businesses, and how we operate as societies are being transformed by technology, and the current global pandemic is only fast-tracking the digital transformation. With this post, I want to delve into the top 10 tech trends that are driving the fourth industrial revolution and that will define the next decade. Number one is artificial intelligence and machine learning. We've talked about this many times before. That's number one on it. Number two is the Internet of Things, IoT. We've just talked about Internet of Things and IoT in terms of fourth industrialization and 5G. So we just talked about that. While the first smart device many of us were exposed to was a smartphone, now we now have smartwatches, TVs, refrigerators, and we'll soon have smart everything. These days, everything is getting smarter. Today, there are 20 billion smart devices, but it is expected to grow to at least 200 billion connected devices soon. These smart devices are responsible for an explosion of data and are rapidly changing our world and the way we live in it. The ability of machines to connect to and share information with each other is a key part of the IoT. Big data, that goes without saying. We've talked about big data many times on here. IoT devices generate data, people generate data. Data is very valuable. It's like oil. Number four is blockchain. We've talked about blockchain many times. It's a part of fourth industrialization, connected devices, and it's a technology enabler. So we've talked about that many times before, so this should not be new to anybody on here. Number five is cloud and edge computing. We talked about cloud and edge many times on here before. Robots and cobots. What it is, today's robots can be defined as intelligent machines that can understand and respond to the environment and perform routine and complex tasks autonomously. In this data-driven age, it's the intelligence and ability to act autonomously that defines robots and separates them from other machines. The rise of collaborative robots or cobots is the latest generation of robotic systems designed to work alongside humans as robotic colleagues. Cobots enhance the work that humans do and interact safely and easily with human workforce, extra robotic muscle in the workplace. Number seven is autonomous vehicles. We talk about autonomous vehicles all the time. It's a part of fourth industrialization because it's about connected devices. Autonomous vehicles are always going to be connected. 5G, we just went over 5G earlier. Genomics and gene editing. That's something that we don't go over enough, but we'll cover it real quick. Genomics is an interdisciplinary field of biology that focuses on understanding and manipulation of DNA and genomes of living organisms. Gene editing is a group of technologies that enables genetic engineering in order to change the DNA and genetic structure of living organisms. Increasingly powerful computers and sophisticated software tools now available were instrumental in helping us understand the human genome since it was first accurately sequenced in 2003. Today, biotechnology has advanced to the point where it's viable to alter the DNA encoded with a cell and influence the characteristics that its descendants will have after it reproduces by cell division. Did not know that genomics and gene editing was involved in fourth industrialization. That's new to me. And quantum computing, we've gone over quantum computing before. Everybody should know this, but that's a part of fourth industrialization as well. And that's it, you know. I think when it comes to fourth industrialization, we have to be, you know, we have to keep things into perspective, you know. If you want to be a part of fourth industrialization, you got to understand the top 10 that we just covered. All of these things matter. I don't think you can certify in any of these really. I think it's more about whether or not you can, one, it's about literacy, and two, it's about mastery. Can you, either you have one or the other, either you are literate or you are a master at it, but there is no wavering around this. Most of these things you can't really certify in, right? Artificial intelligence, machine learning, either you can do it or you can't. IOT, either you know it or you don't. Big data, either you can produce it or you can't. Blockchain, either you know it or you don't. Or either you master it or you don't. Cloud computing, edge computing, either you know or you don't. Robots and cobots, are you aware of it or not? Either they're gonna take your job or you're gonna be one driving the technology, right? Autonomous vehicles goes without saying. 5G, it's already here. Just got my 5G phone as well. Genomics and gene editing. That's something new to me. I didn't know that. I'm glad I know now. CRISPR is going to be a part of all of this conversation. So, yeah. There's go on edx.com or edx.org, I should say, and there's free classes on CRISPR or gene editing. During the pandemic, during the lockdown, you should be actually taking at least one class. Quantum computing goes without saying. So either you know it or you don't. Anybody else have, let me go to the chat and see if anybody has anything.
Hey, Mike, I'm back to like my old hours, dude. So I'm always going to be coming in on the tail end of the live streams now, dude.
All right.
I said, I'm back to my old hours.
Yeah, we heard you.
So, yeah.
Yeah, engineering cannabis in the chat says all the technology takes time to learn, but is worth learning. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. You would be very much correct there, engineering cannabis. And we talk about this a lot. Black people getting left behind, more importantly, Black men being left behind in the fourth industrial age. I don't see too many guys in the manosphere having that conversation. You know, everybody's talking about other things, but they're not having this conversation. And people come looking for answers, and they're like, "No one's telling me anything." Well, you know, check this out.
It's absolute truth, man. And you know, I think at this stage of the game, it's quite bothersome. You know, and you know, shout out to the brother who was on the live stream with us yesterday on Thai City's live stream about the trucking. And you know, it's kind of like, you know, I'm gauging like the pushback. You know, and when I kept repeating that, hey, you gotta listen to our live streams, because you know, we're not about the doom and gloom, we're actually about the business. You know, and it's kind of like, I think this is that we're so used to, you know, being entertained, that, you know, we don't really have the patience to sit down and be informed, you know. So largely when we get informed, it's through like shock, like identity quakes, like you say. And it's not through, you know, a consistent, steady feeding of information. And so that's kind of what has us at this deficit, man. At this is like a crucial time, man. You know, it's that time of chaos where there's opportunity if you know where to look. You know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this really concerns me because we're already behind and this stuff is getting harder and harder. Like just to stay like to keep up to date, like I could be ordering these textbooks and I'm like, wow, like in 50 years, like you're gonna have to be a genius to understand any of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It's gonna create the new gig economy. The idea of people just going into work doing the 9 to 5, that ain't happening no more, man. Those days are over. Especially with the pandemic, it really accelerated that whole entire thought process of going into the office. Now people won't be going into the office. We just got an email this morning about company maybe opening up, May 11th. I mean, that's probably what, next Monday or next Wednesday or something like that.
Yeah, next
So
week.
you're talking about opening up the office. Who's going to go in there? But they're talking about, that might just be for manufacturing. Everybody else, is still TBD, to be determined.
And there's still fear out there, so people are still afraid as well.
Well, I think there's going to still be a measure of scalability that's going to be looked at here, right? Don't think that over the last 2 to 3 months that companies haven't looked at what they did, in terms of adjusting for all of this, and saw what it was that they were able to accomplish by having people off site. So if we do go back to site, they'll go back at a much smaller scale. They'll say, okay, what do we need to have a facility for? The next thing you know, they're going to go look for another place that's like half the size, half, a third of the cost of the building that they had before. And all those people that can do the job, that show that they can do the job from home, they're going to keep them there.
Yeah, I have no interest going back into the office. I actually prefer working from home.
Yeah, at this point, I don't either.
Yeah, I mean they have a lot of snacks in the office, but they can keep the snacks, man. I'll just order from not Best Buy, from Whole Foods. So yeah, I think recruiting too plays a significant role. Recruiters usually like to talk face to face with people, especially the older ones, man. This is a cultural shock for them that they have to use Zoom or Skype or WhatsApp or something like that to talk to somebody. Like, what? No, I need to really meet you in person. I need to make sure that you're,
that you are who you are.
Yeah, well, that you're a viable candidate for the role. Because one thing, you could talk to somebody, talk to somebody through email, but when you meet them in person, it might be something different. If you're a recruiter,
it might be somebody else.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in human resources, we had actually started doing Skype interviews and all that stuff. This was like 2015. Yeah, around 2015. I think I got out of human resources in 2016. But yeah, I was like around 2015, 2016. We were doing like video interviews.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, engineering cannabis. It says Mike V is not lying. Find your interest and study the hell out of it 4 hours a day. Let the Netflix time go. I canceled Netflix last year. Early last year, I canceled Netflix. I still get these emails. Do you want to sign up? About how no? No.
I pay for it. I hardly ever use it.
Yeah,
I mean, my daughter. Yeah, I let my daughter. That's for her primarily. So she wants to watch a movie or do something. But yeah, dude, I don't know. I've been paying for it for God knows how long, dude. I can't even tell you last time I watched something on it.
Yeah. Walmart just sold Voodoo to Fandango. So.
Oh wow, really?
For $100 million. So.
Ooh.
You would think somebody like Jay-Z would have picked that up. Jay-Z paid $50 million for the title.
$100 million?
For Voodoo.
Yeah, that's it?
Yeah.
Wow.
And Voodoo has, I think it has about close to like 100 million subscribers.
I mean, think about what you could have just did with that.
Say that again.
So think about what you could have just done with that.
In terms of what?
No, on 100 million subscribers, like basically a content platform with 100 million subscribers on, paying subscribers on it.
Yeah. Well, they don't. See, with Voodoo, you don't pay for the service. You actually just pay for
the app. Is, right.
You pay for the video. So that's it. You don't. There's no obligation to sign up for anything.
Right.
So Fandango is like the the box office app to go to.
Yeah, they were selling like tickets you could call and buy the ticket. I remember when they first started, like you could go online and purchase tickets for movies ahead of time. They were like one of the first companies to do that.
Right. And what I'm saying here is that movie theaters are actually streaming to people in the home now. They're not going to lose out any revenue on that. If they can push all their movies to Vudu, that's a game changer.
Hey, check this out. My daughter she did this thing where there's like some sort of I think it's a Firefox plugin or something, right? Where you can schedule a movie and then send the invite out to a bunch of people, and then a bunch of people who have a Netflix account. And then what happens is they put you guys like in a movie theater, and there's like a chat box, and everybody's sitting there watching the same movie, chatting and stuff.
Yeah. If I was Jay-Z or one of these moguls like that, I would have been right up on top of that immediately. But that's just my thing,
I'm gonna tell you like this, man. I've never been like the one to really look at like I get it, right? So Jay-Z, Diddy, these guys. But I guess Kanye now, I guess he's a new black billionaire or something. And so I guess these guys are always sort of looked at as the guys to do something, right? But I think now is really the time to really just kind of have like these sort of like low key, dare I say, shadowy like VC firms. Like we need to start clicking up like that, just on the low. And I don't really like the whole notion of the idea we got to look to these dudes to make some shit happen when like brothers can just click up and have like a low key hedge fund and just make power moves on the low, man. Just snatch up like equity shares and stuff and have a portfolio of stuff. Like we have to really start thinking more along those lines. I mean, I get what you're saying, like just somebody who has the money and looking at the opportunity in something like acquiring a Voodoo for something like $100 million. Who do we readily think to as somebody who has the capital to do it? Yeah, Jay-Z, I get it, right? But I would say that, taking like more of like a private hedge approach. So having like, thinking in terms of like group investment for equity shares, stuff like that. There's multiple ways to skin the cat, as they say. So, yeah, I just wanted to touch on that, man. Because we do that. Sometimes I'm just like, man, yeah.
All right, thank you all for joining us, man. Please hit the like button if you've not already done so. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. There's a doc in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with and reference after the playback. Thanks to Jay and the Golden 11 coming through in our complex as well. Shalom, everyone.